They're researchers, innovators, and entrepreneurs. As part of the EURAXESS Services Network and EURAXESS Worldwide webinar series, we are presenting to you today a topic focusing on career development tools that are accessible to you in order to support your career professional development. Our speaker and expert on the topic today is Dean Hogan. I would like to give him a very warm welcome. Dean is a career coach and professional trainer working within the EURAXESS network since 2014. In 2019, he wrote a report, Open EURAXESS, to strengthen the effectiveness and optimize the services of all partners in an innovative and open EURAXESS network. Dean is a task leader for the design and implementation of the EURAXESS Service Center's training needs analysis. He presented webinars for the network on the training needs analysis in 2019 and transferable skills in 2020. Furthermore, Dean designed and developed both the Researcher's Career Development Toolkit and the Asset tool for the British Council. He was a member of the expert working group, which developed a set of guidelines for setting up career development centers within the European research area. The title of his presentation is Career Development Tools, Online Tools to Support Self-Directed Career Development. And now I would like to give the floor to Dean to start his presentation.
Hello, Victoria. How are you? Thank you for an excellent introduction. You can see my screen there, okay?
Yes.
Okay, and hello to everybody and welcome to the webinar from Dublin. Career and professional development and planning for researchers has for some time been a high priority for the European Commission. The reasons for this are quite plain and obvious. The European Commission believes that the more researchers that are working in research or using their research skills, the more innovation there will be in the European economy and consequently more employment. So theoretically, this is a win-win situation for everybody. And this is why the European Commission has been so supportive and continues to be supportive of researchers' career development. Under the Top 4 project, we have selected a number of pre-existing and accessible and practical online tools that will support self-directed career development for researchers. So what we want to do is focus on the practicalities. Because we realize that we have a problem with researcher engagement. We realize that you guys are very busy. And to a certain extent, we perhaps may have been a little bit guilty in not selling the idea forcefully enough or persuasive enough for you to take on your own career development activities. We want to increase buy-in. One way to do that is to recognize the realities of a researcher's working life. We understand that you have lab work, analysis, writing, publishing, networking, seeking contracts, social and family activities, funding and grant applications, communications of research results, etc. We understand all that. So what we want to do is we want to limit the amount of time that you need to spend on career development by providing you with surgical tools, as it were, that will provide you with real outputs. Keep it simple. The outputs and results will be usable for you. And we want to deliver on a promise that if you invest time in yourself, in your own career planning, that you will be rewarded for the time that you spend. We will also touch on the end of the webinar on some possible workshops and solutions to fill potential gaps in the process. All the tools that we have selected are accessible, and for one of them, just an email address will be required the first time that you sign into the website, and you will use the same email address every other time. You will not be receiving any emails from the people who designed and host these tools. There's no involvement other than you just using them as you see fit and how you want to use them for your own career development. So what we want is We want you to have a complete understanding of your own skills, your competencies, your abilities, and your experiences. We want you to have the confidence and the ability to articulate and communicate these to various audiences that include potential collaborators and employers, but also colleagues as well, and lots of other people that you will come into contact with in your day-to-day professional activities. We want you to understand what motivates you and what type of working environment brings out the best in you, so that you can identify these working environments and try to achieve employment in them. Finally, we want you to take responsibility for the future direction of your professional life by planning where you want it to go. You will do this by being proactive, understanding all of your options, and thereby making informed decisions. That's really, if you wanted to summarize self-directed career development for researchers into one phrase, it would be you making informed decisions about the rest of your professional life. So, how many tools are there? Well, there's only 8, and they are really very simple. Underneath in the video here, in the comments section, you will see links to all of the tools. So I'm not going to spend too much time talking about them or explaining what they are, but we would encourage you to explore them and use them as you see fit. And what we're going to try to do today is to show you how they can be used individually to support your own career development. That's probably going to be more interesting to you than me just talking about the tools. Very briefly, the first is the Career Development Toolkit for Researchers. It's an e-booklet. We'll be looking at that one first. My IDP Careers website is probably the one that we're going to use the most, and this is the one that you will need to use an email address for. The Psych Central website is the only one that's really replaceable. It's for a personality profile, and there's lots of similar tests online available. Number 4 is the National Postdoctoral Association. It's a website, and the tool that we're using from there is really an information sheet that we will use when we're doing our skills audit, as I will show you later. Then we have another e-booklet, 10 Career Paths for PhDs. Self-descriptive. Then we have 2 websites, Discover Careers Beyond Academia for career exploration, and Interact, academia reaching out to business for a similar purpose. And then lastly, at number 8, we have the 5-minute career action plan, another e-booklet. As I said, explore all of these at your own pace. You will find them very, very useful. What we're going to do is, instead, as I said, go through the tools, we're going to look at the sequential steps that you would need to use for your own career development and planning. You can use this as a pretty good framework in which you can work in. The first step, obviously, is where am I now? You do an assessment of your current situation and how you got there. Then we move on to the self-assessment using the VIPS model. We look at your values, your interests, your personality and skills. Lastly, then thirdly, we will do an assessment of the self-interpretation results. Once that is done, we can look at some career exploration tools, some reality testing and planning tools, how to go about seeking relevant identified training and experiences. We'll touch briefly on CV and interview skills and how they relate to what we're doing here. And lastly, we'll also give a little bit of information on job searching websites, etc., that can be used. So to begin, the first step is obviously where am I now? We will begin with Claire Jones' excellent Career Development Toolkit for Researchers. This opening section, as you can see, we're basically just going to see where you are now and understand how you arrived at your current situation. Stop and take stock. How did you get here? As you can see, the questions are phrased to make you think, make you do a double take. Perhaps you take advantage of, or you don't really appreciate how you got to where you are right now. So these questions are to help you understand that. Why did you choose to decide a PhD? What career ideas or plans did you have at the start of your PhD? Do you still have those plans, or have they been changed by subsequent events? These are some things that you need to consider and talk about with your counselor. At what point in your PhD did you decide to carry on in your academic research, and why? Again, why? What drives you? What motivates you? Did anybody influence you to continue on in postdoctoral work? If so, who was influential, and was their influence positive or negative? Did you explore other career options? If not, why not? Have you discounted those career options forever, or would you be interested in maybe revisiting them? These are the type of things that you will need to discuss when you get an opportunity to get some coaching or speak with a guidance counselor. From your responses, what are your career decision-making strengths and weaknesses? So very early, we go into a very important question there. What are you good at when it comes to career decision-making, and what are your weaknesses? How do you identify them? Let's look a little bit further. Step 2, we come to the self-assessment. And as I said, we use the old career coaching method, VIPS. Your values, interests, and personality. When we do these assessments, you'll get responses and print out an output, and they should all provide signposts and strong indicators towards a certain direction for your career. So those first 3 are really important. But when it comes to skills as a researcher, to potential employers and collaborators, your skills are everything. Your skills are your passport to wherever you wish to go. Your skills are what will secure you a job interview for a role that you want. For example, when you are doing your CV, when you're compiling your CV, the first things you will put in your CV is your name and contact details. Directly beneath that will be your key skills for the role that you are applying for, because that is the first thing they will look at when they're looking at your CV. So for a researcher, your skills and the understanding of your skills is really, really important. So what we're going to do is we're going to begin with a skills audit. So the first thing you should do in your skills audit, without giving it too much thought, just write down a number. Write down the number of skills that you think that you have. And the reason why I'm doing this is that when we finally get to the finished list, you should have a lot more skills than you originally thought. And this is a great confidence boost to most people. And invariably, everybody underestimates the number of skills that they actually have. So it's important to get a comprehensive list of your skills, because you will need to refer to them again and again in the future. So now that you've written down your number, again, off the top of your head, write down in a list as many of your skills as you can remember. Write down a full list of all the skills that you can think of that you possess. After you have done that, you can use your CV to prompt your memory. If you don't have a CV, write down a list of any previous employment that you may have had. And just like the CV, break each role down that you would have done in the past into the various skills required to fulfill those roles, because each role does require, no matter what it is, each role requires skills. And it's important that you take note that you have those skills, you have used them in the past. And it's important to demonstrate that you've used them in the past, because you may be asked about that in a job interview. So that's why it's important that you make full note of all of your skills. After you've used your CV to prompt your memory and increase your list further, as I said, you can look at all previous employment, break down those roles. And then once you've done that, if you have peers or colleagues who are also engaging in a similar exercise, compare your list with theirs, because you guys may share skills that one of you could have perhaps forgotten about, or you may have a skill that is very similar to a skill that your colleague has. This is just to prompt your memory and to prompt your colleague's memory. So you should end up with a quite comprehensive list of all of your skills at this point. Very important to keep them. And then we're going to make good use of that list now. Just to add to it a little bit more, we can take out the National Postdoctoral Association's core competencies. Now, this is really important, because this is basically researcher-specific skills, and it will help you, again, to think about possible skills that you might have. It may help you to articulate or put a name on a specific skill that you may have, because that's one good thing that we have about the whole VIP process and career development that is self-directed. When you enter this process, you invariably find that you were able to identify and put a name to things that you always knew about yourself but weren't quite able to articulate, because one of the main things, as I mentioned earlier, about self-directed career development is that you get to understand yourself and develop some self-awareness. So back again to the skills audit and adding to your list of skills. The first area there we look at is discipline-specific knowledge. This will be specific knowledge that is unique to your specific area of research. After that, we have more general research skill development. And as you can see, each of the skills or skill areas that are listed here do have component parts, like broad-based and cross-disciplinary knowledge acquisition that can be broken down even further, interpretation and analysis of data, etc. Research skill development. Then we move on to communication skills. It's very important for me at this point to say something specific about communication skills. We get a lot of feedback from potential employers of researchers, and one of the most consistent types of feedback that we get a lot is that researchers could greatly improve their communication skills. Potential employers invariably are disappointed by the communication skills that a lot of researchers display. Now, if you remember when I mentioned to you earlier, your skills will get you the job interview, but your communication skills will probably determine if you get the job. You could be the best researcher in the world, but if you don't know how to communicate that and explain to various audiences your work and what you hope to achieve, it's going to be very difficult for you to move forward. But as you can see, communication skills break down into a number of various areas: writing scientific publications, speaking, teaching, and interpersonal skills. Again, interpersonal skills are very important, and again, as you can see, they're broken down into sub-skills that you should be looking at. Have you developed any of these in the past? Would you like to develop them more in the future? The next area is professionalism, workplace professionalism, etc. Then we move on to the leadership and management skills area. Then responsible conduct of research also. So again, we've got a whole lot of areas that you can add to your skills list if you don't already, if you have forgotten about anything there that would have pricked your memory, as it were. Then we will definitely have finished with a long list of skills now, and I'm sure if your original number was 10, if you thought you had 10 skills, more than likely your final list now should be approaching something in the region of 30 or 40. So that's really what you want to be looking at, a very long, comprehensive list of all of your skills. And lastly, we have the IDP, My IDP Science Careers. This particular questionnaire is interactive, and it gives you, I have to admit, it is slightly biased towards STEM subjects, but we would encourage all researchers to take the assessment anyway. It will give you a very clear printout. It will tell you what areas you are highly proficient in and other areas that you are deficient in. So for example, in number 5, and if anything there in number 5, once you have done your assessment in the 5th column there, if you can see anything that is not already on your list, take it from this list there and put it onto your own skills list. And finally, your skills list will be complete. Once it is complete, you really need at that point to take note of transferable skills. Transferable skills are skills that you acquire in one setting, but they can be used in another setting or another industry or another role. Transferable skills are very important because transferable skills give you options, and they also make you more attractive to potential employers because they show that you can adapt to various situations because you already have the skill sets to do so. So now that we've moved on and finished our transferable skills, what we really want to do now is just finish up the skills section of our self-assessment. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to do a final skills exercise. Basically, you're going to divide your list of skills into 4 separate lists. Now, the first list is motivated skills. These are skills that you enjoy using. So ideally, in a future career or a future roles, these are the skills that you want to be using as much as possible. Obviously, if you're using skills in which you are very good at and you are motivated to use, you're going to enjoy your job more. The next list is development skills. These are skills that you possess, but you may not have used much in the past or may not have had an opportunity to use them, but you would like to use them more in the future. Or perhaps you have part of these skills, you enjoy using them, but you want to develop them more and perhaps get more training and learn more about them. So these are your development skills. So they are potential motivated skills, but at the moment they're just development skills. The third list we have is burnout skills. These are skills that you would prefer not to use. You may have overused them in the past and just want to do something different instead. But it's important that you keep these skills listed because they may help you to get employment in the future. And then lastly, we have skills that are not important at this time. These may be skills perhaps from sport or skills from hobbies or skills from a role that is totally unconnected with the current role that you have now. But again, it's important to keep them there because your skills are basically your toolbox. So whenever you go looking in your toolbox, you want everything where it should be for you to grab and take out and use as necessary. So once you have the motivated skills list, this will be your first real indicator of the type of path that you could be choosing for future careers. Because your motivated skills, when you look at your list of motivated skills, there will be relationships between them, and there will be certain roles or professions or basically jobs that would suggest that these skills be used a lot in. So that's your first indicator and your first signpost. So after the skills, we then move on to the next step in the self-assessment, and this is the interests and values assessment. These are very important, as I said earlier, because basically your interests are all about your motivations. What gets you up early in the morning? What career themes are you attracted to? Why are your interests? What type of interests are you attracted to? Why? Are your interests social or enterprising or investigative, creative, systematic? What way does your mind work in the way that you are attracted to certain themes? How can these interests complement a career? So we basically want to look at the things that really stimulate your interest, stimulate your intellect, so that you can then take your motivated skills and use them in that setting. So as you can see, we're beginning to build signposts in different areas. Lastly, or not lastly, next we have values. Values are important too. What matters most to you? What do you value most in a job? For example, would it be security or financial remuneration? Would it be travel or perhaps a chance for a career advancement? What do you need to be professionally fulfilled? What are your core values? Core values are very important because if we find ourselves working in an environment that is contradictory or not in line with our own core values, it can lead to a lot of stress in the working environment and obviously unhappiness. What type of research or industry or entrepreneurial work is consistent with your values? So if you can find work that uses your motivated skills, is in line with your interests and motivations, and then is also in line with your values, you're really ahead of the pack and you're going to have excellent advantages over other people who will be going for similar roles. Then we come to the final part of the VIPS, which is the personality test. The one we're looking at here is just a simple Psych Central website. There's, as I said earlier, there's a lot of other personality tests just like this online. I would like to point out that this is not a diagnostic personality instrument, but merely something that we can use as an indicator for career preferences. What we're looking at in terms of your personality is how do you like to work? How do you work with others? What kind of work do you enjoy? What kind of work do you dislike? What working environment suits you? These are the type of things you need to understand about your own personality. And you know, these can be discussed further when you get an opportunity to talk with a coach or a guidance counselor, because you can take all of these self-assessment results and share them. So what do we have at the end of the self-assessment? Well, we've got the skills audit, including your categorized skills list, which will have your motivated skills and your transferable skills. You've got the values, interests, and personality results, all of which will also provide you with strong indicators. And then the first tool that we used earlier, and we'll go back to in a moment, the career development toolkit, which asks you about your current situation and how you got to where you are at the moment. At this point, it would be very helpful if you did receive some coaching or had a session with a counselor, simply because apart from the motivated skills list when you've compiled yourself, the values, interests and personality section will be just computer readouts, and you're not necessarily going to feel an identification with them or feel that they are part of your identity until you've really had time to discuss them, because the values, interests and personality outputs that you get from these tools will not exactly conform to you as an individual. You'll need to explore and tease it out a little bit more. And this is done through open-ended questions, and it's important that it's done correctly. Now, just so you will understand, an open-ended question is a question that requires much more than a yes or no answer. In fact, it's the opposite of a yes or no answer. For example, if I ask you about your values, and if I say to you about your values list, if I ask you, is this list consistent with your own personal values? That's not an open-ended question. I'm giving you an easy out by just saying yes or no. However, if we're talking about your values, just to think of an example, and I was to say to you, could you list for me your 3 most important values in terms of preference or in terms of their importance to you? And once you have done that, I would ask you to talk to me a little bit about why those values are important to you. Now, during that process of you speaking about those values, while you're doing that, you actually begin to realize that this is part of your identity, because you're taking the computer readout that you got from the tool and then you're prioritizing it and putting it in your own words. This is how you begin to then identify. And it's really helpful if you can have a counselor or a coach to go through that with you. If there's none available, perhaps a colleague or a tutor whose opinion you respect, but they must be objective. Ideally, all the answers must come from you, because you have all the answers inside you. What you need is the right person to prompt and ask the right questions. Just moving on, again, on the interpretations. So you're going to have all of these indicators and signposts from your skills audit, your interest, your values, and personality. So at that point, you know, with your counselor or with your coach or with colleagues, you can ask, what are the strongest indicators here? Is there a common theme? What directions do these indicators point the researcher in? Try to develop a targeted list. You know, what themes are coming up again and again, and what are repeated. Because these are the type of things that you're going to be doing in your early exploration of possible careers. Then we come on to the careers exploration. The first is the wonderfully self-titled ebook, 10 Career Paths for PhDs. It's self-explanatory. Read it. It's a very short e-booklet, and it should give you some really good ideas and food for thought on where you could go with your career in the future. Next, we have the EURAXESS website. Discover Careers Beyond Academia. Again, will give you some more food for thought in exploring possible careers. The reason at this stage where you want to start thinking about exploring possible careers that may have been suggested in the VIPS assessment is that you want to start thinking about making up your own career and development plan. Now, you can't plan for a future until you decide on what your possible career opportunities or career options are. So that is why at this stage, you're looking at potential career paths or potential career opportunities. You can also do it with another EURAXESS website, Interact Academia Reaching Out to Business. You will find that very informative and full of ideas for you also. So then you come to the point where you have got all of your self-assessment results. You've taken note of all the indicators and the possible directions they could be pointing you in. So you need to start thinking about doing your planning and goal setting, and then finally your reality testing. But lastly, just before we do that, we go back one last time to the Career Development Toolkit for Researchers, which was the first tool that we used. And you've got some very pointed and quite pertinent questions that will feed in again to all of the information that we have that we're putting together to try to find the best career goal for you as an individual. we look at the 5-minute career action plan comes in at this point. I have looked at numerous different templates over the years that could be used as a career development plan for researchers, but I have never found one that would fit all researchers. So consequently, I'm not showing you any template today, but there are many out there. The 5-minute career action plan will provide some types of templates. If you find them useful, please do so. If you want to develop your own template, do so as well. Then we come to MyIDP again, which is an excellent resource, which we use again and again right throughout this process. When you're talking about making your career plan, it should be as detailed as possible. Every step should be timed and either be sequential or complementary to the other steps in your plan. Because this is where the reality testing comes in, and this is where you will need the help again of a coach or somebody whose opinion that you respect. Because while you may set up a plan and your plan may look very logical to you, it is up to the other person that is working with you to try to find holes in your plan, to try to make sure that it is comprehensive and it is well timed. For example, once you have identified your a particular role, for example, your coach may ask you, well, do you have the skills for that role? Again, that's not an open-ended question, and it's pretty much a dead end in terms of starting a conversation. What the coach or advisor should be saying is, or asking you is, when they see the role that you have identified for the future, they should be asking you what skills and competencies are required for that role. That will tell your coach two things straight away. First of all, if you have done your research and if you're committed to this process. If you are able to answer the skills that are required for a particular role, well, then we look, okay, well, do you have all of these skills currently in your skills list? And this is where the process really helps you in terms of identifying future training for yourself. Because in many cases, we kind of see that there may be a training course or a training event on that could be accessible to us. But the problem is that we don't necessarily know if it's going to be helpful to us or not. If you use this process ahead of time, you can identify training and skills that you will require in the future so that you can actually go out and seek that training yourself or inform your own institution and hope that they can make it available for you. Finalizing your plan. Again, this is what I said, you're going to be able to identify the relevant skills gaps in your plan and in your CV, and you'll be able to pursue relevant opportunities for training that you yourself will have identified. Step 7 is the CV and interview skills. You know, they are two separate webinars all by themselves. But the important thing about the CV compilation is you'll be able to use your skills list for that. And in the job interviews, skills are really important simply because when you think about your career plan that you will have developed, you will have planned a journey for yourself. Now, in today's economy, employers no longer expect you to be with the same employer for 10, 15, or 20 years. They realize, especially as a researcher, that you will move on from time to time and work in different areas or from different employers. So don't be afraid in your job interview to tell them about the journey that you have planned. Talk about your career plan. You can use it to explain to them how you see them being a big part of your future, how you can contribute to what they're trying to do, and you can show them the benefit of your skills and your competencies while also learning and benefit from working with them. If you're talking about that in a job interview situation, it looks like it's mutually beneficial. It shows that you are somebody who has given a lot of thought to where you want to go with your future. And quite frankly, it makes you a more desirable candidate for a particular role. Another important reason to do some CV and interview skills workshops would be that the HR industry does occasionally have changing fashions in, for example, how a CV should be compiled and how a CV should be written. What type of interviews there are numerous types of different job interviews out there, so you need to be aware of the different type of job interviews that you will face so that you won't be surprised when the time comes. And there are lots of other interview tips that you will you will need. But again, when it comes to interviews, remember your communication skills. They're going to be really important. Coming near the end now in terms of job searching, when you actually have identified the career that you want or careers, and there's a number of websites here that we recommend are excellent for looking for jobs, and a lot of our researchers use them. And again, before we finish up, so you can see the sequential steps for the self-directed career development for researchers. And hopefully you will find some benefit from these tools. Hopefully you'll enjoy using, and really hopefully they will be helpful to you in planning your own career and your own future. I thank you very much for your time and for your interest, and hopefully we can address some questions that you may have in the future.
Thank you, Dean, so much for your presentation and for all the information that you gave us, to all the researchers that that can, use the information that you provided. And I think that all of us can start the self-assessment of our skills, because that's one of the first steps that we have to do. So thank you again to you, Dean, for the presentation, and to all of you for listening. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye.